Chapter 1469. Ling Xiao had already learned from Elder Ning who was behind the Nuanyang Fund. It was the disciple that he had personally sent to the Moon Empress, Lin Yuan. Moreover, the Warm Sun Fund was not just Lin Yuan's matter alone. He had also pulled in 4 top factions. It could be said that the scale of all the charity funds that had appeared in Radiance was no match for the Warm Sun Fund. News of the Nuanyang Fund would be posted on the Star Web today. As the scale of the Warm Sun Fund increased, it would soon spread throughout the Star Web. At that time, the exposure of the Nuanyang Fund was equivalent to the exposure of Redbud City. Perhaps this matter could even attract some rising and established powers to move their headquarters to Redbud City. This wasn't the first time Ling Xiao wanted to take the initiative to communicate with Lin Yuan. However, after some consideration, Ling Xiao finally gave up on the idea of taking the initiative to look for Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan was doing a good deed of helping others unconditionally. This kind of thing should not be involved with his own little calculations. Ning Yanting was a veteran of Redbud City, and with Ning Yanting communicating with Lin Yuan would be able to communicate with him. He did not need to communicate with Lin Yuan again. Ling Xiao made up his mind. In the future, as long as it was related to the Warm Sun Fund, he would cooperate unconditionally. It was said that the Nuanyang Fund was in contact with some counties outside of Xia region. Ling Xiao decided to personally pave the way for the Warm Sun Fund. He must not allow the Moon Empress disciples' free heart to be tainted by the selfish desires of some vile people. After Li Ziqiang understood the situation, he anxiously dragged his wife Wang Xuemei and his son Li Zhong to the administrator to verify the situation. At this moment, Wang Xuemei, who had always been cautious, spoke to Li Ziqiang. "Hubby, take Zhong to Lord Fong to verify the situation. Let's split up. I'll stay here and observe the situation." After living for so many years, Wang Xuemei had never encountered such a pie falling from the sky. Although it seemed that there was no problem at all. But it was hard to guarantee that he wouldn't be tricked once he entered the house. For a family like Wang Xuemei who was in debt, any loss was unbearable. Therefore, Wang Xuemei wanted to understand the situation first. He wanted to see if the people who came out of the houses had obtained any phase. Li Ziqiang felt that Wang Xuemei's words were reasonable. "Alright. Then I'll first bring Zhong to the administrative office to verify the situation with Lord Fong. After verifying the situation, I'll come here. I'll be lining up here all night. I will strive to let Zhong obtain a fei tomorrow." Li Ziqiang decided to stay up all night to queue here because he was afraid that the site opened by the Nuanyang Fund might be cancelled one day. When Li Ziqiang returned home after work, he would always surf the Star Web. Li Ziqiang loved listening to songs, so it was impossible for him not to know about the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess. Although Li Ziqiang had never tipped Chimey before, he was definitely Chimey's old fan. Li Ziqiang happened to watch the livestream where the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess announced that she was going to establish the Warm Sun Foundation. In Li Ziqiang's opinion, the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess had taken out all the money she had earned to set up the Warm Sun Fund. However, no matter how much money the Nuanyang Fund had, it could not withstand such a consumption. Li Ziqiang returned home and brought Li Zhong to the administrative office. During the verification process, Wang Xuemei noticed that almost everyone who entered the room would walk out with a fei in pleasant surprise. All of a sudden, the sharp-eyed Wang Xuemei noticed a familiar face among these people. Wang Xuemei quickly took 2 steps forward and asked the young girl who was walking over, "Little Lon, why are you here? Little Lon, why are you here? I'm going to bake some sesame seed cakes tonight. I'll send some over to you after I'm done. Don't be polite with Auntie Wang this time." The young girl standing in front of Zhang Xuan looked at Wang Xuemei with gratitude and said, "Thank you, Auntie Wang. Thank you, Auntie Wang." While speaking, Zhang Lan had some doubts in her heart. Wang Xuemei's family conditions weren't bad, and she had at least over 10 radiance dollars in savings. The Nuanyang Fund helped those who didn't have savings and were truly in trouble. Wang Xuemei didn't meet the conditions of the Nuanyang Fund at all. At that moment, Zhang Lan heard Wang Xuemei's hopeful voice. "Little Lan, are feis given out for free here?" Zhang Lan nodded and replied, "It is true that feis are given out for free here. This place is indeed giving out feis for free. Furthermore, it will choose the feis abilities and exclusive skills based on the spirit chi professional's talent. We also receive patients here and can help those who don't have the ability to seek medical treatment. The reason I came here is to treat my leg injury. Auntie Wang, now that my leg injury has recovered, I can go and earn money to take care of grandma from now on. After speaking, Zhang Lan seemed to want to share her joy and jogged in front of Wang Xuemei. Immediately after, Zhang Lan explained the rules in detail to Li Xuemei. Then she skipped home, ready to share her happiness with her grandmother. Upon hearing that, Li Xuemei felt a little complicated. If Li Ziqiang had chosen to use his family's money to prepare phase for his son, she would have come here to treat her illness. According to the review rules, she wouldn't have been able to pass the review at all. Fortunately, Li Ziqiang had chosen to spend all his family's savings to treat her. Because of her illness, her family was in debt, which was why she was able to meet the Nuanyang Medical Center's review standards. At that moment she was very happy and thankful. She was happy that Li Ziqiang loved her, and at the same time she was thankful for the kindness of the person who sponsored the Nuanyang Fund. It was the kindness of the person who sponsored the Nuanyang Fund that ignited hope for her small family. On this night, the Star Web was not peaceful at all. The Xia region's Star Web netizens only took up a small portion of the Star Web. However, those videos and pictures of the Nuanyang Fund were like a prairie fire. When Chimey was live streaming at night, it was afraid of encountering the previous situation again. As expected, once Chimey started live streaming, those haters and fake reviewers in Chimey's live streaming room kept sending bullet comments to question Chimey. Chimey recalled that Lin Yuan had said that it could live stream with peace of mind tonight, so it didn't bother about the bullet comments. It just minded its own business and sang a song. The night wind blows the white hair on your temples, soothing the scars left behind by memories in your eyes. Light and darkness are intertwined. A smile blossoms, the twilight conceals your unsteady steps. Walking into the bedside to hide the painting in the painting, you speak with your head lowered. I still lament at the vastness of the world and indulge in the love words of my childhood, leaving no truth or falsehood. Without struggle, pointless jokes, I finally returned my youth to her, along with the midsummer that flicked from my fingertips with a move of my heart. It goes with the wind in the name of love. Are you still willing? At that moment, some strange noises were heard among the bullet screens that were questioning Chimey. Chapter 1470. Wenzi, so many of you are scolding Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess. Are you sincere? If you're sincere, then your hearts are black. There was no host on Star Web who was willing to take out all their income to set up a fund. Since the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess dared to say it, she would definitely do it. How long has it been since the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess mentioned preparing the Warm Sun Fund? Do you think it doesn't take time to prepare a fund? Did he say that he could immediately prepare it tomorrow? If you haters had been incited to attack the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess, it would still be understandable. However, if you were hired by someone to earn money against your conscience, wouldn't your hearts hurt? Wenzi was furious when she sent the bullet screen. Wenzi was not an old fan of the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess. The Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess had been live streaming on the Star Web for more than 8 months. Wenzi had only entered the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live stream room by chance 2 months ago. Wenzi did not know much about the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess. She only liked its singing. Wenzi would memorize the lyrics of the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess song and learn to sing it. When did Wenzi truly become a fan of the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess and love her from the bottom of her heart? It was the night when the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess revealed her face and live streamed about establishing the Warm Sun Foundation. A talented person would only be appreciated by others. Only with virtue would people find her adorable. Previously, Wenzi had visited the live broadcast rooms of other talent and attractive anchors. Wenzi was more or less familiar with the fans on the leaderboard. Many of the people who were spamming the bullet screen and scolding the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess were people that Wenzi was familiar with. Wenzi's words were for these people to see. But the bullet screen was just too fast. Wenzi's serious message was quickly overwhelmed by the other messages on the bullet screen. However, it was undeniable that Wenzi's bullet screen was seen by many viewers in the live stream. Many old fans of the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess responded to Wenzi's bullet screen comments. They even copied Wenzi's bullet screen and sent it out. In any matter, disagreements would lead to disputes. Chimey's live streaming room was no exception. As Chimey sang, its gaze never left the bullet screen. It could be said that Chimey had seen every bullet screen in the live streaming room. Suddenly, Chimey felt that its singing was a little boring. He was now working so hard to live stream in order to help more Fays or people like him, Genius and Lin Yuan in the past. But in the end he was misunderstood by others and the live broadcast room was filled with arguments. The little sound bird was unwilling to be wronged like this. Chimey felt a little tired. This was because Chimey wasn't happy singing at all. Chimey suddenly missed the days when it often followed by Lin Yuan's side and landed in his ear to sing for him alone. With this in mind, Chimey stopped singing. Chimey said as it looked at the bullet screen in the live streaming room. "I'm a little tired from singing. I hope we can meet again." After speaking, Chimey left Star Web and didn't bother about the audience in the live streaming room. Upon seeing Chimey go offline, many anchors lurking in Chimey's talent area and attractive area revealed smiles on their faces. It could be said that Chimey's appearance was equivalent to snatching their rice bowls. Music wasn't mainstream in the Radiance Federation, and the talent zone was just a small area on Star Web. Although Chimey was live streaming in Star Web's 2nd District's attractive section, Chimey had been covering its face. It was not a threat to those top streamers in the attractive section who relied on their looks to make a living. However, ever since Eneen had revealed its face, the hosts in the attractiveness section had suffered a blow. Therefore, many streamers in the attractive section and the music section contacted each other to suppress the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess. If the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess had stopped her livestream to give an explanation and report on the progress of the preparation of the Warm Sun Fund, these Star Web streamers who had hired fake reviewers might feel a headache. Because once things got complicated, these paid posters would have to be paid extra. Now the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess did not even bother to explain and just went offline. It could be understood as a sign of guilt. Now that the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess had run away, they could say whatever they wanted in the live streaming room. At that moment, Bai Hao happened to enter the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live streaming room. Bai Hao, who had entered the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live stream room, felt a little confused. Just now, when he was watching the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live stream from outside, there was still a streamer doing the live stream. Why did the host disappear the moment she entered? As the Radiance 100 sequence selection was imminent, Bai Hao's 100 sequence ranking would change. Bai Hao had the thought of rushing up, so he had been training more. He did not have time to surf the Star Web. Just as Bai Hao was about to give gifts, he saw the bullet comments in the live streaming room. Bai Hao was so angry that he did not care about his Radiance 100 sequence member identity and personally sent bullet comments to go against the fake reviewers like a young kid. Because the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess had been humiliated, Bai Hao did not care about propriety when he went against the fake reviewers. His words were as nasty as they could be. Bai Hao's bullet comments really suppressed many fake reviewers and hosts. The Star Web had real name authentication. If Bai Hao wanted to contact the Star Web to investigate this matter, it would be very easy to find out their identities. However, not everyone was afraid of Bai Hao. Some of the famous Star Web streamers had some factions behind them. These famous streamers were able to have such a smooth sailing life because of the support of factions. When these famous streamers targeted the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess, they had checked and reported to the factions behind them in advance. Something went wrong, the factions behind them would cover for them. Seeing Bai Hao going against the fake reviewers, Poison Beauty, who was lurking in the live streaming room, shook her head. Poison Beauty would appear in the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live streaming room. She did not bring the fake reviewers to the Black Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess. Poison Beauty was just an ordinary listener of the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess. But then again, Poison Beauty was very popular on the Star Web now. Previously, she could only be considered a small host outside the 5-star region in the Star Web's largest region. In order to have people watching her live streaming, she had no choice but to be stuck on the 100th floor of the Star Web Tower. She became the Celestial Stairway's goalkeeper. Later, Poison Beauty's number of fans had soared because she had ridden on Black Sparrow's popularity twice. Furthermore, she had seized the opportunity and used all her skills to retain that part of her popularity. Afterward, she was signed by the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce and became its selling host. She sold luxury items that cost at least 10,000 Radiance dollars per unit. This had allowed Poison Beauty to gain more fans. On the other hand, it had also allowed her to have a good offline income. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had very strict rules that did not allow the signed hosts to have any negative influence. Due to this job, Poison Beauty could not speak for the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess in the live streaming room. She did not dare to be like Bai Hao, who could unscrupulously send bullet comments to go against the fake reviewers. Chapter 1471. However, Poison Beauty had a hunch that the people from the Black Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess would not have a good ending. In the end, none of them would have a good ending. Since the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess had said that she would forcefully take out all of her income to establish the Warm Sun Fund, it would not be empty talk. Could not be empty talk. The Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's daily donations were over 1 million radiance dollars. The Warm Sun Fund's radiance dollar reserves were at least 100 million. If a charity fund of 100 million radiance dollars was spent, it would definitely become a hot topic on StarWeb. At such a time, using this matter to attack the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess was simply digging a hole for herself. She was simply digging a hole for herself and complaining that she was not dying fast enough. At that moment, a special bullet comment appeared in the live streaming room. Black Feather of Annihilation. I'm asking if those haters and fake reviewers' faces hurt? Black Feather of Annihilation's bullet comment was very short, and there was also a StarWeb link below. In the live streaming room, if one wanted to post a link in the bullet comment, one would need to spend money. This was an act of advertising. The money spent was 5% of the live streaming host's daily income. The Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live streaming lasted less than 20 minutes and stopped before the 5th song was finished. During this period, the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess had earned at least 800,000 radiance dollars. In other words, Black Feather of Annihilation had spent at least 40,000 radiance dollars to post this link. What kind of information would be worth 40,000 radiance dollars? Many viewers in the live streaming room were rather curious and clicked in one after another. As a result, the viewers and internet water army in the live streaming room who clicked in were shocked by the contents of the page. On the page was a very simple StarWeb freewheeling post. This kind of freewheeling post was like a diary, which could record one's life at will and publish it on one's homepage. This post was the confession of a pitiful person. However, this pitiful person had grabbed the starlight in despair. The post looked like a story, but there was also a video attached at the end. Upon seeing the content of this long video, many viewers and fake reviewers fell silent. Because in the video, there was an organization called the Warm Sun Foundation, which was spreading hope non-stop. It was saving every ordinary person. The one spreading all this hope was the young girl who had just been questioned and slandered in the live streaming room. That young girl had ended the live streaming. Perhaps a person would be sad because he was doubted or wronged because he was wronged. More and more people clicked on the post. More and more people were willing to spend 40,000 radiance dollars to share the post in the live streaming room again. The sparks in the Xia region had finally started a prairie fire in Chaime's live streaming room. The internet water army no longer slandered him. There were even quite a few internet water armies with a conscience who began to apologize in the live broadcast room. Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess, I'm sorry. In the live broadcast room where there were no live streamers performing, the comments kept rolling. The last line of the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's song before the live stream unknowingly echoed in the hearts of everyone in the live stream channel. In the name of love, are you still willing? This matter was constantly fermenting on StarWeb. Many of the streamers who had hired the internet water army to lead this incident were exposed. The money that had been invested in Chaime had now been returned to those live streamers who had caused trouble. The turbid waves on the StarWeb were surging, but at this moment there was another wave. It was bigger and fiercer than the waves on the StarWeb. On the surface of the deep blue sea, the turbid waves hit the island, raising waves 30 to 40 meters high. 2 island whales that were tens of thousands of meters long sailed side by side in the sea. Since the Celestial Body Council wasn't held as usual, Lin became gloomy. In another day, it would be time for the next Celestial Body Council to be held. However, would the next Celestial Body Council be held as scheduled? If he couldn't, would he lose the one who could save him from the darkness? Amidst the stars, the man who was surrounded by willpower and laws. At that moment, 2 knocks came from outside Lin's door. Subsequently, a gentle voice echoed. Lord Azure Envoy, Lord Lonson wants to look for you to discuss the temporary cooperation agreement proposed by the Freedom Federation's envoy. Lin frowned slightly when she heard that. Lin didn't like to be disturbed when she was thinking. However, since Lonson was looking for her and it was to discuss important matters she should go over. Lin stood up and opened the door with a wave of her azure blue dress. Seeing Lin, the youth who came to pass the message blushed and couldn't help but lower his head. His voice also became like a mosquito. Yinlin looked down at the youth beside her and said, "Jiang Song, lead the way. Lead the way, Jiang Song." The youth called Jiang Song heard that and immediately realized that he had lost his composure. He hurriedly took 2 steps forward to lead the way. The floating island whale's back was too long. It took more than 10 minutes to walk from Yinlin's room to the meeting place. Just as Jiang Song was nervously leading the way, he heard an ethereal and cold voice coming from behind him. "Jiang Song, what's wrong?" Teacher Lan Sun is tempted by the short-term cooperation proposed by the Freedom Federation's envoy. This time, it is very likely that you will be facing the next Radiance envoy, so don't underestimate your enemies, especially you, Yanling. Your sacred source life form is indeed powerful, but don't rely too much on it during battle. Perhaps your sacred source life form will be targeted by someone else's sacred source life form. Don't blame me for not reminding you when the car overturns. When Yanling heard Qianyu calling her, she couldn't help but stick out her tongue. However, Yanling didn't take Qianyu's instructions seriously at all. So what if there was a next Radiance envoy? His Kai Hua's and Yu Changjian's phase formed a system, and the sacred source life forms could work together perfectly. Among the new Freedom envoys, Kai Hua and Yu Changjian were the iron triangle that supported the offensive direction. As for the other 2, one was a functional spirit chi professional, and the other was a creation master. The 2 of them were just supporting roles. Yanling didn't think that there was anyone in this world who was her age. There was someone who could defeat her, Kai Hua and Yu Changjian together. Not only did Yanling not understand, but Kai Hua and Yu Changjian also didn't understand Qianyu's words. Big brother Qianyu had always been arrogant. Why was he so cautious now? A grand event like the Myriad States Convention was attended by the previous 5 Federation envoys and the current 5 Federation envoys. In a sense, the current 5 Federation envoys were all candidates for the previous 5 Federation envoys. In some special battles, or if the previous Federation envoys had any accidents, they would be able to replace them in time. If there were no accidents, a Federation envoy could participate in 2 Myriad States conventions. The second Myriad States convention would be their home ground. Yanling, Kai Hua and Yu Changjian hadn't participated in the Myriad States conventions yet. After all, the 3 of them were rather reliant on Qianyu. Qianyu sighed inwardly when he saw the indifferent expressions on the trio's faces. 8 years ago he also had the same mentality as the 3 of them. However, when he participated in the Myriad States conventions and faced the Radiance envoys head-on, he didn't have the same mentality. Only then did Qianyu understand what kind of existence the Radiance envoys were. Qianyu was very afraid that Yanling, Kai Hua and Yu Changjian would suffer because they looked down on him. At that time it was a small matter if the Radiance Federation didn't lose face, but it wouldn't be good if it affected the other purposes of going to the Radiance Federation. Qianyu glanced at the 3 elders sitting below him and nodded to one of them. After the elder understood Qianyu's meaning, he said to Yanling and the other 2, "Your sacred source life forms are very important. It's best not to expose your sacred source life forms during this trip to the Radiance Federation." Chapter 1475. Speaking of which, the gathering among the stars was not considered helpful to Yinlin now. Instead, it was a little cumbersome. However, there were already fetters that Yinlin could not cut off in the stars. Yinlin did not dare to think about what would happen if the Celestial Council did not proceed as usual. Would she never be able to see him again? Just as Yinlin was looking up at the stars in the rock continent's underground world, a seriously injured youth was commanding a bat species Fae. He split out a bat group to attack a group of Class 3 underground dimensional life forms. As the bat group surrounded these Class 3 underground dimensional life forms, the youth's injuries were recovering at a visible rate. There were more than 10 figures behind this youth, controlling different source-type life forms to fight against the underground dimensional life forms. This was a small team that Bei Su had formed within 2 weeks. It could be considered the embryonic form of Bei Su's faction. During these 6 days, Bei Su did not dare to let himself stop at all. He had to fight until he was exhausted every time. This was the only way Bei Su could not let his imagination run wild. Tomorrow was the day of the next appointment, and Bei Su had been looking forward to it. Trey had been rather stable for the past few days as he had been on the road. He encountered 2 groups of bandits, but they were dealt with by the Hammer Kingdom's court warriors who were sent to his side. Although it was still a long way from the Divine Wood Federation's border, Trey was already looking forward to meeting the master he had identified. Zhou Xian had already met up with Lin Yuan in reality. The Celestial Council no longer had any meaning to Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian no longer intended to participate in the next Celestial Council. Zhou Xian did not intend to participate in the next Celestial Council. In any case, she could get in touch with Lin Yuan at any time. Yin Lin had already started to select the 14 millet fruits and had already selected 7 suitable women. It would not be long before the 14 millet fruits would be formed. At night, the radiant royal capital's lights were lit, and it was bustling. Topics related to the Sparrow Voice lowly goddess on Star Web had washed the major forums and posts tonight. Even those Star Web netizens who did not listen to music usually understood the Sparrow Voice lowly goddess and the Warm Sun Foundation. Just as the public opinion about the Sparrow Voice lowly goddess was at its peak, a piece of news was announced at midnight. It was announced on Star Web on time. The Star Web officials sent a message to every Star Web user. This news left all the Star Web netizens and faction members dumbfounded. Then he was filled with anticipation and excitement. It was the news of the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift officially opening for all Radiance Federation citizens. During the Nyx Assembly, the High Holiness had discussed that Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rifts would only be open to faction members. But later, His Holiness Cicada Cry proposed the idea of letting 32 major cities build mirror cities in the Abyss world. With the established mirror city, the danger in the Abyss could be effectively isolated through the city itself. This allowed any Radiant citizen to operate safely in the Abyss world. Thus, there was the current announcement to the world. Regardless of whether it was a rising force, a veteran force, or a peak force, none of them had received the news in advance. It could be said that this piece of news was equal to everyone. The members of the forces who received the news immediately mobilized their men. He began to plan his development in the Abyss. It was precisely this piece of news that caused the expressions of Di Wanqing and Di Wantian, who were overseeing the whale ocean trade, to change. The Radiance Association would publicize the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift during the Great Night Assembly. Di Wanqing and Di Wantian heard the news. It was just that the two of them did not expect the Highnesses to act so quickly and not leak any information in advance. If it had been during normal times, Di Wanqing and Di Wantian would have wished for the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift to open earlier. At the juncture of the Radiance 100 sequence selection, no one would focus on the whale ocean trade anymore. However, the bad thing was that the whale ocean trade had attracted so many low-class creation masters at this juncture. The 32 major cities were building cities in the Abyss world. Factions of all sizes were building towns in the Abyss world, and this was the time when creation masters' resources were needed the most. If the whale ocean trade were to recruit creation masters in large quantities at this time, it would be too conspicuous. It was very easy for others to discover that something was amiss and reveal clues. Di Wantian immediately said to Di Wanqing, "Wanqing, go and inform Third Sister about the situation. 3 days later, when that batch of creation masters arrives, ask Third Sister to get rid of all of them so that she can become a Class 5 creation master in one go." Di Wantian knew very well whether his Third Sister had become a Class 5 creation master or not. She had completely different speaking rights. What Di Wantian wanted to do was to increase the speaking rights of the whale ocean trade to the maximum. It was so big that she could negotiate with the High Holiness. Lin Yuan woke up at daybreak in the Return from Faraway Manor. After consuming the geocentric jade milk, it was already very difficult for him to develop the habit of sleeping in. After waking up, he immediately learned about the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift's public announcement. He immediately entered the Spirit Lock spatial zone and worked hard. Chapter 1476. However, before talking to Lin Yuan about the Sacred Source Life Form and the Celestial Body Council, when you had other things to ask him. When you had only learned about the opening of the Class 6 Abyss Rift this morning. In her opinion, the Abyss world was an unknown world that had yet to be explored by humans. There were extremely rich resources in the Abyss world that could be mined. When you wanted to ask if Lin Yuan had any plans to develop in the Abyss world. Thus she said, "Young Master, the Abyss world has opened. Young Master, the Abyss world has opened. According to the rules, our Sky City will be located in the capital. Are we going to build a faction in the Abyss world's mirror image royal capital?" Upon hearing her words, Lin Yuan was slightly startled. He immediately recalled that he, Lu Jia Zhong Zhe Long Tao and the others had not told Wen Yu about building a faction in the Abyss world. Thus, Lin Yuan explained the situation to Wen Yu in detail. Wen Yu nodded when she heard that Lin Yuan already had a plan for the Abyss world. At that moment Wen Yu heard Lin Yuan continue. Wen Yu, I told you about the swamp world situation last time, but you have never been to the swamp world to take a look. Since I have time now, I'll take you to the swamp world to take a look. Lin Yuan took out the treasure cave golden toad's skin and stomach pouch. He released the dragon-horned mystic tortoise and handed it over to the mother of bloodbath. Lin Yuan let Wen Yu enter the treasure cave golden toad. Then Lin Yuan returned to the spirit lock spatial zone with the treasure cave golden toad. He entered the swamp world through the Klein hub. After entering the swamp world, Lin Yuan released Wen Yu. After Wen Yu visited the territory in the swamp world, Lin Yuan took her back to the main world. Sitting on the water rhinoceros leather sofa again, Wen Yu learned that Lin Yuan had already spread his business to the swamp world. Compared to the Abyss world, the swamp world was undoubtedly more suitable for human development. Because the Abyss world was hot all year round, there was no rain and the ground was solid rock. It was not suitable for planting any plant species phase, and it was difficult to raise long-haired beast species phase. Under the high temperature of the Abyss world, even if the long-haired beast species phase had sufficient water supply, they would still be easily suffocated by their long hair. With Long Tao managing the faction and many people investing in it, Lin Yuan's distribution of resources would be much less than when he established his own faction. However, he could truly be a hands-off shopkeeper and not have to worry about anything. At the same time, there was no need to invest any manpower. Since everything in the Abyss world had been arranged properly, the Abyss world was not a place to be. When you did not need to make any more plans. Recently, Duan He had been bringing the white-clothed followers to train outside. It was better to let Duan He and the other white-clothed followers bring along the faceless paper to cooperate with the major cities. Lin Yuan sighed. He would have to go into seclusion for this month. However, working hard in seclusion was the only way for him to increase his rank as a spirit chi professional. Although continuously enhancing bronze/epic phase wouldn't give as much spirit chi as upgrading bronze/epic phase to silver or gold, the spirit chi one could obtain was far less than upgrading bronze phase to silver or gold. However, this would undoubtedly allow him to obtain greater economic benefits. After all, the entire faction still had to rely on Lin Yuan to support it. However, many a little makes an ocean. Before the Radiance Envoy selection, it would be enough if he could easily become an A-rank spirit chi professional. Lin Yuan said to Wen Yu. After this, I will contact the city guard captains of Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City. At this point, Lin Yuan's mind moved. Wen Yu, get the source paper to form a faceless paper for me. Wen Yu felt a little strange when she heard Lin Yuan's words and did not understand why he wanted the faceless paper. However, since he had made a request, she naturally would not refuse. Soon, a pale yellow tissue appeared in her hand. Wen Yu handed the pale yellow tissue to Lin Yuan and said, "Don't worry." She said, "Young master, you just have to put this faceless paper on your face. The faceless paper will change the proportions of your facial features. It can change about 80% of the original foundation. After the changes, it will be impossible to recognize a person based on their appearance." Chapter 1477. In addition to the faceless paper changing its appearance on its own, I can also manipulate it and change it into a specific appearance. However, after wearing the faceless paper, there's no way to remove the disguise state. If you want to remove the disguise state, you need to use the source paper to take back this faceless paper. Otherwise, even if you scratch your face, the faceless paper will still not be damaged. Upon hearing Wen Yu's explanation, Lin Yuan chose the former without hesitation. Lin Yuan planned to use the faceless paper to change his facial features at will and make them more ordinary. He did this so that he could go to the Whale Ocean Trade's lair and find out what was going on through the registration. Lin Yuan placed this pale yellow tissue on his face. Lin Yuan felt something gently brushing against his face. His face was slightly itchy. But soon this itch disappeared. There was no mirror on the first floor of the Return from Faraway Manor's main residence. However, the sweet white porcelain vase with fresh flowers on the table could reflect his image very well. Through the sweet white porcelain vase, Lin Yuan found that his facial features had indeed been changed by the faceless paper to be extremely ordinary. It was the kind of existence that would not be noticed in a crowd. Lin Yuan was very satisfied with this. However, he did not know that Wen Yu's thoughts were completely different from his. After Lin Yuan used the faceless paper, Wen Yu had indeed felt that his facial features had become ordinary at first glance. However, at second glance she found that it was not the case at all. Lin Yuan's facial features had been exquisite and handsome before. Such handsome and exquisite facial features would to a large extent weaken the beauty that Lin Yuan had. It would weaken Lin Yuan's temperament and bone features, giving people a sense of beauty. However, now that Lin Yuan's appearance had become ordinary, the beauty of his temperament and bone features could not be suppressed no matter what. If such a Lin Yuan was placed in a crowd, people would not feel anything at first glance. However, as long as that person took a second glance, he would immediately become the focus of the crowd. However, this did not affect Lin Yuan's purpose of using the faceless paper to cover up his appearance. Wen Yu was not obsessed with looks. At present, Lin Yuan had an ordinary appearance and a prominent temperament and bone features. In her eyes, Lin Yuan was more charming than the previous Lin Yuan. Sitting beside Lin Yuan, Wen Yu's heart could not help but beat faster. Wen Yu hurriedly said softly, "Young master, if you don't want to continue using the faceless paper, I can help you take it off. After taking it off, the faceless paper will not be damaged. Young master, you can still wear it on your face in the future and your facial features will be the same as last time. However, if you change to another piece of paper, your facial features might not be the same as before and they will continue to change." He reached out to touch his face and found that it felt exactly the same as before. It was impossible to tell that he had changed his appearance. The faceless paper's ability to disguise itself could be said to be one of the best. After Wen Yu took it off, Lin Yuan put away the pale yellow paper. He then turned to Wen Yu and asked, "Wen Yu, you said you wanted to discuss your sacred source life form, the celestial body assembly. Did something happen to your sacred source life form, the heavenly body council?" Upon hearing that, Wen Yu immediately activated the celestial council, and a cat's eye stone appeared on her forehead. The cat's eye stone flickered with starlight, making Wen Yu feel as though she was among the stars. Lin Yuan found that Wen Yu's sacred source life form, the celestial council, had been upgraded to star 3. Moreover, there seemed to be an object containing a huge amount of spiritual energy hidden in the celestial council. This object was increasing the celestial council's star class every second. Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to continue investigating the celestial council. He found that the celestial council's star class had changed. Everything else, including the function description, was the same as before. Lin Yuan looked at Wen Yu, not knowing what she wanted to talk to him about. At that moment, Wen Yu said, "Young master, my sacred source life form has been upgraded to star 3. The celestial council has now reached a fork in the road. I can use my spiritual energy to decide the celestial council's 2 directions of development. The first direction is to pull more people into the celestial council to make up for the northern and southern constellations' seats. The celestial council is now at a fork in the road. I can use my spiritual energy to decide the celestial council's 2 directions of development. The other way is to deepen the relationship between the celestial council and the northern and southern constellations." Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows and asked, "More specifically, how can I deepen the relationship with the northern and southern constellations contractors?" In Lin Yuan's opinion, pulling a large number of people into the celestial council was not necessarily a good thing. Wen Yu's spiritual energy could only maintain the celestial council once every 7 days. It could only be maintained for half an hour. Under such circumstances, if the celestial council suddenly expanded from the original size of 6 people, including Lin Yuan and Wen Yu, to a dozen people, during that half an hour of the celestial council's meeting, the 6 to 7 minutes that a person could get now would become 1 to 2 minutes. Without saying much, just exchanging pleasantries, a minute or 2 would pass. Chapter 1478. If Wen Yu wanted to deepen the connection with the contractors through the Heavenly Council, she would need other things. Lin Yuan might not be able to agree so readily. He had the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone and could quickly gather a lot of wealth. However, the types of resources that the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone could produce were too rare. He had already thrown aside the completely jade-textured wood. Most of these completely jade-textured wood were used in the construction of the Return from Faraway Mansion and the underground space. Lin Yuan would only let the Heavenly Craft Pavilion's spirit craftsmen process the leftover powder after Hu Quan had processed it into luxury items. They would be put in the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce for sale or auction. As for the completely jade-textured wood that could not be used, Lin Yuan stored them. He was going to use them when he built the Sky City on the floating island whale's back. With the whale bones of 3 old island whales as the beam, Lin Yuan did not need to build the structure. However, if he wanted this beam to be gorgeous, he needed to use a lot of materials to fill it. Lin Yuan, who was used to using the completely jade-textured wood utensils, still intended to use the original style of the Return from Faraway Manor in the construction of the Sky City. Therefore, only acquaintances needed the completely jade-textured wood. It would no longer flow from Lin Yuan's hands into the market. The Spirit Lock Spatial Zone's current wealth was all relying on the Golden Lotus Brocade, the Heavenly Maiden-grade Elemental Pearls, and the Bronze/Epic Phase that Lin Yuan had enhanced in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Under normal circumstances, precious spiritual materials would not appear in the market at all. For example, the Island Whale Head Oil and Ambergris Whale Fragrance in Lin Yuan's hands. Even if Lin Yuan went bankrupt one day, he would not exchange them for supplies. Therefore, he could not guarantee the availability of some rare resources. However, Lin Yuan had too much willpower and law energy. It was difficult to find willpower and law energy with others. However, Lin Yuan's sacred source life form, the sacred sword embracing queen, could extract willpower and law from the fantasy breed phase bodies and myth breed phase law crystals at will. Lin Yuan had not stopped searching for the fantasy breed phase bodies and myth breed phase law crystals. When Lin Yuan had prepared the phase bodies for Duan He to feed the purple demon, he had extracted the willpower from these phase bodies in advance. Now all kinds of willpower and law energy were mixed in the princess dress. Many minor laws and willpower were of no use to him. He could consume these useless willpower and laws without any heartache. It was equivalent to helping the princess wash her dress. Upon hearing his matter-of-fact words, Wen Yu blinked twice. Wen Yu remembered that when she had first convened the Celestial Council, he had said the same thing after exhausting his willpower and nomological energy. However, if he wanted to communicate with the contestants of the northern and southern constellations through the Celestial Council, he would need a lot of rules and willpower. Wen Yu said, "Young master, even if you don't lack willpower energy and rule-bending energy, it's still not enough. But I'll need a lot of rules and willpower." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan smiled and explained to Wen Yu, "My sacred source life form can extract willpower and laws from the bodies of fantasy breed phase and the law crystals of myth breed phase. Don't worry. If we really need too many, we can exchange for some dead fantasy breed phase corpses when we reach an agreement with those large cities. When I use the Golden Lotus Brocade stock to trade with the various peak powers, I'll exchange it for some law crystal fragments." Wen Yu was completely relieved after hearing Lin Yuan's words. Wen Yu knew that Lin Yuan had already formed a contract with a sacred source life form. However, Wen Yu did not know what Lin Yuan's sacred source life form was. Wen Yu had never thought of asking him. Now that Lin Yuan had told him about the sacred source life form's abilities, it meant that Lin Yuan trusted him. Wen Yu's heart felt warm in an instant. The corners of her mouth curled up into a bright smile. After sorting out her emotions, Wen Yu said, "Young master, if I increase the connection between me and the contractors of the constellation seats in the deep south sky, the Celestial Body Council can only accommodate 7 people at the same time, including you and me. However, I can extend the duration of the Celestial Body Assembly from the original 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows. This was not considered a restriction for him. Instead, it was very good news. Compared to 30 minutes, 45 minutes was an increase of 50% on the original basis. It would be easier for him to communicate with the Celestial Council members. On the other hand, 7 people was not a small number. Excluding Lin Yuan and Wen Yu, the Celestial Council could pull in 5 people at the same time. Su Yiren had already met up with him at the Divine Wood Federation. Although Su Yiren had signed a contract with the constellation seats, she did not need to participate in the Celestial Council. Tally would soon meet up with him at the Divine Wood Federation border. At that time, the Celestial Council would have an empty seat. Currently, only Yin Lin, Bei Su, and Tally needed to participate in the next Celestial Council. In other words, when Lin Yuan convened the Celestial Council, he could choose 2 newcomers to join the Celestial Council. Lin Yuan was looking forward to it. It would give the contractors of the constellation seats the ability to contact the Celestial Council. Chapter 1479. The completion of these two transactions was equivalent to earning another 12,000 law origin crystals for Lin Yuan. It was enough for the princess to spend a long time. Yuzhong City and Cloud Pool City needed such a large number of high-quality bronze phase, which was enough to prove the determination of these large cities to build mirror cities in the Abyss world. Lin Yuan, who had an understanding of the dimensional world, knew how difficult it was to develop resources in a dimensional world. He did not know how many hard battles he would have to fight with the abyssal demons. The opening of the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift and the establishment of the mirror cities in the Abyss world would subtly increase the Spirit Chi professionals' courage. It would make the Spirit Chi professionals' beliefs and willpower stronger in the process of training in the Abyss world. It could be said that the Abyss world was the Radiance Federation's best place to prepare for war. Of course, the establishment of this place was all due to the Holiness's discovery of the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift. They had swept through the Abyss world day and night. They had driven away and killed all the powerful dimensional lifeforms in the Abyss world. As for setting such a low price with the Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City's city guard captains, it was mainly because Lin Yuan did not want to use the opening of the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift to raise the price. It gave people a feeling of exclusive greed. Otherwise, at this juncture when all the factions were recruiting creation masters, Lin Yuan was asking for 10 or even 15 Law's Origin crystals. Even if the Yuzhong City and Cloud Pool City's city guard captains did not agree at first, they would eventually have to pinch their noses and accept it. Lin Yuan increased the price by 1 Law Source crystal on the original basis of 5 Law Source crystals. It was for Indigo Azure City's city guard captain Feng Dong to see. He had already shown his friendliness to Feng Dong. As for how Sky City should treat Feng Dong, it completely depended on how many orders Feng Dong could bring to Sky City. Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City were neighbors of Indigo Azure City. Duan He was currently leading the white-clothed followers to train near Indigo Azure City. After Lin Yuan hung up the phone with the Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City city guard captains, he called Duan He. Over the phone, Lin Yuan issued a mission to Duan He. He asked Duan He to lead these white-clothed followers and travel between Cloud Pool City, Yuzhong City, Stormy Wave City and return from Faraway Manor. Duan He, who understood Lin Yuan's mission, immediately told him that he would complete it perfectly. In any case, Lin Yuan had already finished discussing the matter. Duan He would need to spend more effort on the delivery of the phase. Each of the white-clothed followers recruited by Sky City had comprehended at least 3 willpower runes. Due to their origins, most of the prodigies who had been lost in the Radiance continent had very weak main phase. However, with Lin Yuan's pouring of resources and Duan He's meticulous nurturing, Lin Yuan's cultivation had improved tremendously. These white-clothed followers were no longer the same as before. The sharp sword had been hidden in the scabbard for a long time. It was time to reveal its edge. This mission was the best time for the white followers to show off their abilities. I have awakened a willpower rune. I can be your servant. Can you please let my sister go? A teenager was kneeling on the black stone floor. The teenager kept banging his head on the ground, making loud banging sounds. The black stone floor was indeed bright, but the collision of flesh and blood with the ground was like an illusion. In the end, a huge bump appeared on the teenager's head. The bump on the teenager's head continuously hit the ground, and the blood squeezed out a hole on the skin of the forehead, staining the black stone floor. In front of the teenager was a middle-aged woman who was about 40 or 50 years old. The middle-aged woman's eyes did not even glance at the teenager. But when she saw the teenager's blood staining the black stone floor, a trace of disgust immediately appeared on the middle-aged woman's expressionless face. A trace of disgust immediately appeared on the middle-aged woman's expressionless face. It was as if she had seen something dirty. Seeing the middle-aged woman frown, the 2 men behind her hurriedly picked up the young man who was kneeling on the ground and prepared to throw him out. At that moment, the middle-aged woman stood up. Wait. After saying that, the middle-aged woman walked in front of the teenager and said in a disdainful tone, "Kid, you have a good idea. Kid, you sure have a good idea. You have awakened a willpower rune and want to stay in the castle as a servant. Are you trying to freeload one of my fays? It is your sister's fortune that the 6th young master has taken a fancy to her. If your sister stays by the sixth young master's side and serves him well, you might be able to live a better life in the future. After speaking, the middle-aged woman picked up the jade wheel on the table, turned around and walked into the castle. When she left, the middle-aged woman used the jade wheel to gently roll on her face, maintaining her skin. Her expression was full of satisfaction. The teenager was left with his head on the ground. The dizzy teenager gritted his teeth and his eyes were filled with hot tears. However, he did not dare to let his tears drip on the black stone floor. The sixth young master had taken a fancy to his sister, and his sister had no way of rejecting him. Because of this, the teenager told his sister the secret that his sister did not allow him to say. The two men beside the teenager had all kinds of tattoos on their bodies. One of the men had a totem tattoo on half of his face. It made the man look very fierce. Seeing that the teenager was about to cry, the man said playfully, "Kid, the master of our castle does not like to see people cry the most. Anyone who dares to cry in the castle will not have a good ending. If your tears fall, I won't have to throw you out." When the man said that, his face showed a ruthless expression. It was as if the teenager was going to kill the moment his tears fell. That was indeed the case. The other man said in an unfriendly tone, "Fourth brother, why are you wasting time with this kid? Throw him out so that we can go back and report. This kid's sister is with the sixth young master, we might have to go back. Send this kid's sister back." When the man said this, he purposely emphasized his voice. It was as if he wanted to purposely provoke the teenager he was holding up. Sure enough, as soon as the man's voice fell, the man felt the muscles of the teenager he was holding up tensed up. This was a man's bad taste. Men love to feel helpless and hopeless lives, fear, worry, and powerlessness. The teenager's fingernails had already pierced into his palm. However, compared to the pain in his hand and forehead, the teenager's heart hurt more. The teenager's parents passed away early, and he and his sister depended on each other since he was young. The teenager knew how good his sister was to him. It was not that the teenager did not think that his sister would marry someone in the future. Although the teenager was a little helpless against this, he did not dislike it. However, the sixth young master in this castle was basically a sick devil. His sister would fall into the hands of the sixth young master in less than 3 days. It was not the sixth young master who killed his sister. It was his sister who could not bear the humiliation and ended her life. Chapter 1480. Based on the youth's understanding of his sister. Compared to the former, the youth felt that the latter was more likely. At the thought of this, a feeling of despair filled the youth's heart. At this moment, the youth wished that he had enough strength to rush into the castle and take his sister away. He wanted to kill all the bad guys that obstructed him, including the sixth young master. All of a sudden, the youth felt a wave of dizziness. The incessant banging of his head on the ground had given the youth a concussion. Slowly, the youth's consciousness weakened. When the two tattooed men saw that the youth had fainted, they couldn't help but feel bored. When they walked out of the castle, they threw the youth at the castle's entrance as though he was a piece of trash. The youth's shabby and sorry state seemed out of place when compared to this imposing castle. After an unknown period of time, the youth felt a chill around his body and woke up. When the youth opened his eyes, it affected the wound on his forehead. The youth couldn't help but gasp in pain. The cool air poured into his throat and pulled the youth's thoughts back to reality. After looking in the direction of the Blackstone Castle, the youth staggered back home. He might not be able to see anyone in the vicinity of the Blackstone Castle. But in the dark there were guards on duty. His sister must already know that he had come to the Blackstone Castle. If he lingered here and didn't leave, he might be killed by the guards. He couldn't do anything for his sister, and he didn't want his sister to be sad because of his death. At this moment, the youth wished for a miracle to happen. The first tattoo on his body was from his mother, and the second was from his father. After his parents died, his sister helped him tattoo them on his body. Back then, the youth still remembered that he had begged his sister to tattoo them on his parents. This way the family could be reunited again. The youth clenched his fists tightly, and fresh blood dripped onto the ground from time to time. After walking out of the Blackstone Castle and arriving at the alley, the youth smashed his fist on the wall fiercely. In the Blackstone Castle, there was a Mother Earth, which was considered a mid-class noble in the entire Mother Goddess Federation. Above Mother Earth was Heavenly Mother. Mother Earth was usually held by Class 1 to Class 3 creation masters and experts below Emperor class. Heavenly Mother was held by Class 4 creation masters and experts above Emperor class. There was only one Mother Goddess in the entire Mother Goddess Federation. He was the only Class 5 creation master in the Mother Goddess Federation. The Mother Goddess Federation did not have the concept of Her Majesty. Overlord-ranked and above experts were collectively known as the Mother Goddess Guards. They protected the only Mother Goddess in the Mother Goddess Federation. The entire system of nobility was intricately linked. Mother Earth worked for Heavenly Mother, and Mother Earth could receive rewards from Heavenly Mother. The Heavenly Mother also worshipped the Mother Goddess. The entire pyramid of nobility was so dense that the youth could not even muster the will to resist. If a heavenly god descended, he would really be able to defeat old Mother Earth in Blackstone Castle. The guards that the Heavenly Mother left behind in the Blackstone Castle would definitely kill him. Even if he was lucky enough to defeat the Heavenly Mother's guards, the Divine Mother and the Divine Mother's guards would immediately chase after him. The only way to change one's fate was to become a creation master, becoming the Mother Earth recognized by the Mother Goddess Federation. However, he was too young and couldn't afford to let the creation master appraise him and see if he had the talent of a creation master. Even so, when the young man thought of his sister, he still felt a surge of courage. If he could save his sister, he was willing to give up everything in exchange. When the young man returned home, he had lost too much blood and was overly nervous and exhausted. He immediately fainted. When he fainted, Bu Po's tightly clenched fists didn't loosen. Fresh blood seeped out from the gaps of his fingers and soaked the blanket, making it red with determination. A slightly old but abnormally massive ship was sailing in the wind and waves. The wood used on the giant ship had been soaked in seawater and corroded by the wind and rain. Not only did it not decay, but it was also in a stone-like state. The wooden body of the ship was embedded with steel cables of different lengths and thicknesses. On the outside of the steel cables, there was a layer of metallic spiritual materials. At the front and back of the ship there were two giant ship lamps. Originally there were two high-grade strange flames in the ship lamps. The high-grade strange flame, sunlight illumination flame, had a powerful illumination ability. In terms of illumination ability, even some top-notch strange flames were inferior. However, at this moment the sunlight illumination flame in the ship lamps at the front and back had been specially taken out by someone. It was dusk and the sea surface was gloomy as the wind and waves gradually weakened. However, under this gloomy sea surface, there were hundreds of black shadows that were at least 5 meters in size following the ship closely. Occasionally the black shadows would come close to the surface, their black fins covered in sharp barbs. If these black shadows sped up, the fins on their backs could easily split through palm-thick ordinary wooden boards. Sounds of collisions continuously came from the bottom of the ship. It was clear that these black shadows were tirelessly hitting the bottom of the ship with their fins. Chapter 1481. Compared to starvation, lack of water was easier to take a sailor's life. Navigator Warren walked out of the cockpit with a sullen face. Warren's heart tightened as he looked at his brothers who had been with him for many years. The ship could only stay on the sea and drift with the current. These shadows were sawfin bite sharks, the nightmare of all Storm Federation navigators. In order to be able to sail long distances, the power system would be placed under the hull. However, these sawfin bite sharks dealt with the Storm Federation's ships all year round. They had learned how to destroy the Storm Federation's ships. These sawfin bite sharks would chase small turtle species phase in the sea. They would force the small turtle species phase to the power port under the hull and force them into the power port. They would block the power port. Even if the ship had backup power, it would still be unable to sail. If they wanted to sail, they could only get off the ship to clean the power port. Every adult sawtooth bite shark was at the peak of the gold rank. There had to be platinum sawtooth sharks in such a large group of sharks. No one on the ship could survive for more than 10 seconds after entering the water. Once someone entered the water, they would immediately be torn into pieces by the sawfin bite sharks, leaving only a red flower of blood. Suddenly a sailor fell headlong from the watchtower and landed on the deck. The watchtower was 10 meters tall, and the sailor who fell unconsciously was dead as soon as he touched the ground. Seeing the sailor who fell from the watchtower, the other sailors and Warren immediately ran over. After confirming that the sailor was dead, many sailors were in a state of extreme lack of water. 2 drops of tears rolled down their rough faces. Warren knew that the sailor had fallen from the watchtower because he had just fainted from thirst. If his brothers and himself were to be trapped here, they would definitely die. They would all be wiped out in less than 2 days. His Warren, which was named after him, would also become a ghost ship on the sea. Warren was no longer a young man but a middle-aged man in his 30s. However, Warren still had the drive of a young navigator in his heart. In the dangerous sea, he relied on the Storm Federation's unique shipbuilding technology to go out to sea with a few men to search for supplies. Occasionally he could make a small profit. When he was young, Warren was a person who often talked about his dreams. Even though he was middle-aged, he was still working hard on the path of a navigator. But compared to his dreams, Warren hoped that he and his old buddies could survive. Thinking of this, Warren returned to the bottom of the cabin and took out the only barrel of wine left by his master, the old navigator. Although the strong liquor wasn't enough to quench their thirst, drinking it would still make the brothers feel better. Facing the withering lives, Warren felt that the things that he valued in the past were all gone. None of that mattered now. Only by living on could he and his old buddies pursue their dreams. Warren's sailors were all drunkards. Whenever he saw alcohol, it was as if he didn't care about his life. Every time he returned to the port, the first thing he did was to go to the bar to pass the time. However, when Warren took out the jar of wine, the sailors all refused, indicating that they could still bear it. Warren took out the jar of wine because he felt that his brothers' lives were more important than his own. But now, because his brothers knew that he treasured this jar of wine very much, they were not willing to drink it. The sour feeling in Warren's heart rumbled. Warren couldn't hold it in any longer. He forcefully pulled the cork off the barrel. As the cork left the barrel, the aroma of wine immediately wafted out. Warren said to the youngest sailor, "Little Monkey, go and bring the bowls." Hearing Warren's words, the sailor called Little Monkey immediately ran to get the bowls. Warren keenly noticed that Little Monkey's wrist was tied with a piece of black cloth. Warren suddenly thought of the saw-toothed shark meat that Little Monkey had given him yesterday. Why were they all soaked in the water? Little Monkey was usually too naughty and always had conflicts with the old sailors on the deck. Warren always said that Little Monkey was immature. But now it seemed that although Little Monkey was immature, he was much more humane than the ground. Little Monkey brought over a stack of bowls. As Warren poured the bowls, he found that one was missing. Just when Warren was about to ask Little Monkey waved his hand. "Brother Warren, I'm on duty tonight. I have to stand on the watchtower. I won't drink." Hearing this, Warren directly hugged Little Monkey. Without saying anything, he poured 2 bowls of wine into Little Monkey's mouth. "You don't have to stand on the watchtower tonight. I'll do it." When the little monkey heard this, it smacked its lips as if it was tasting the wine in its mouth for the last time. He said, "Brother Turbo, you can't do that." Turbo waved his hand and said, "Since I can't sail the ship, there's nothing for me to do as a navigator. Tonight, all of you go to the bottom of the cabin and have a good sleep. I'll go stand on the watchtower." That's settled. After that, Warren picked up the bowl and drank a big bowl of wine. Warren was very strict with his sailors and did not allow them to drink while on duty. But now, looking at Little Monkey and his old buddies, Warren felt that if he didn't drink a bowl of wine, he wouldn't be able to suppress the despair and sorrow in his heart. At night, Warren leaned on the observation tower's railing and summoned his fae, Binding Sea Fern. He ordered the Binding Sea Fern to reinforce the watchtower. No matter how hard such an adult tried, he wouldn't be able to climb down the watchtower. Warren, who was leaning against the fence, looked at the moon in the sky and sighed. Warren, who loved sunny days in the past, hoped that the dark clouds would cover the sky and it would rain heavily at this time. After waiting until midnight when the sky was about to break, Warren, who was always determined, couldn't take it anymore. He fainted uncontrollably. Before he fainted, a thought popped up in Warren's mind. If I can let myself and these old buddies survive, I, Warren, am willing to exchange everything for it. The stars shone brightly and the Milky Way flowed among them. In the center of the Milky Way, the nebula rose with magnificent starlight. Under the nebula's encirclement, a long-awaited meeting was held once again. It was just that this time's meeting was slightly less compared to the previous 6 people. Su Iran didn't participate in this celestial body meeting. Instead, she was nurturing her 14 millet fruits. At this moment, facing the Libra constellation and Leo constellation, 3 figures formed from willpower and spirit appeared on the seats of the Andromeda constellation, Immortal constellation and Leo Minor constellation. The people on the Leo Minor constellation were happy to see their own masters again. But when the people on the Andromeda constellation and Immortal constellation saw the figures on the Leo constellation seat, they couldn't help but have tears in their eyes. Suppressing the excitement and surprise in her heart, Lin spoke first. Leo Libra, long time no see. Chapter 1482. After saying, Lion Libra, it's been a long time. Lin did not know what kind of feelings she was filled with at this moment. This was because these feelings were simply too complicated. Rejoicing, relief, the joy of regaining what was lost, or relief after thinking hard for a long time. In short, she once again saw that man with the myriad Daos willpower and laws entwined around him. That man was still here. Upon hearing Lin's words, Lin Yuan spoke to her apologetically. The last Celestial Council should have gone on as usual, but something happened so it couldn't be held as scheduled. But this problem won't happen again. While Lin Yuan was speaking, Wen Yu looked at Lin with some scrutiny. As a woman, Wen Yu's senses were very sharp. Wen Yu could feel from Lin's words to Lin Yuan that she had a special feeling for him. This feeling was much hotter than friendship. This feeling was as turbulent as the mother of bloodbath's suppressed feelings for Lin Yuan. Wen Yu quietly glanced at Lin Yuan and sighed. The youth beside her was simply too outstanding. But to be honest, Lin's identity was quite compatible with Lin Yuan's. Fortunately, there was no such thing as a marriage alliance between Hui Yao and Lin Yuan. The Moon Empress would not allow others to force Lin Yuan to marry without his consent. Otherwise, after Lin learned of Lin Yuan's identity in reality, she would reveal her identity and make their relationship clear. It was very likely that she would really become Lin Yuan's. Lin did not know what was going on in Wen Yu's mind. If Lin really knew Wen Yu's thoughts, she would immediately be at a loss whether to laugh or cry. However, after that, Lin would reflect on it. Reflect on what kind of gratitude she had for Lin Yuan? Or was it a kind of hazy affection? Just as Lin Yuan was about to continue speaking, a figure condensed from willpower and laws suddenly appeared in front of him and hugged him. This person was Beisu. Beisu's behavior made Wen Yu, who was sitting on the Libra seat, unable to react at all. Wen Yu's brows furrowed immediately. Everyone in the Celestial Council was in the form of willpower and souls. Only Lin Yuan and Wen Yu, who sat on the 12 golden thrones, could judge the souls in the Celestial Council. No matter what Beisu did, he could not hurt Lin Yuan. However, in Wen Yu's eyes, Beisu's actions were a little too overbearing. Lin Yuan was also stunned by Beisu's hug. Immediately after, a smile appeared on his face. Lin Yuan's body, which was composed of thousands of laws and willpower, gently opened his arms and hugged Beisu. It was a response to Beisu's long-awaited reunion. Lin Yuan gently patted Beisu's back. After Beisu's emotions stabilized, Lin Yuan released Beisu's embrace. Beisu was too surprised and excited just now. Beisu, who had now recovered, couldn't help but blush at the thought of his previous actions. Beisu used to be a lowly cursed stone worm that mined in the underground world. It was Lin Yuan who had helped Beisu get rid of the cursed stone worm's identity. He gave Beisu a new life. Lin Yuan had prepared all kinds of Fey enhancement potions and knowledge for himself, regardless of whether they were big or small. It could be said that Beisu, who was originally alone, had already regarded Lin Yuan as his most cherished person. Beisu scratched his head in embarrassment just like a little kid. He returned to his seat at Immortal Constellation Mountain. Seeing Beisu return to his seat, Trey couldn't help but curl his lips. I haven't hugged Master yet. Why did Immortal Constellation hug Master first? Trey had the temperament of a young man. Just as he was about to go forward and hug Lin Yuan said very seriously, the South Corona will not participate in the Celestial Council this time. Lin Yuan's words stunned Lin, Beisu and Trey. The three of them clearly remembered that the South Corona had signed a contract with the seat at the previous Celestial Council. Why didn't he appear at the Celestial Council this time? Could it be that the South Corona had offended the Lion and Scale and was chased out by them? Or had something happened to the South Corona in these 14 days? Just as the three of them were letting their imaginations run wild, they heard Lin Yuan explain. I have already met the South Corona in the real world. I have some matters to discuss with the South Corona in the real world. Therefore, the South Corona will not participate in most of the Celestial Council in the future. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Yin Lin, Bei Su and Trey revealed a look of understanding. Then the three of them became envious. This was because Yin Lin, Bei Su and Trey also wanted to meet Lin Yuan in the real world. What would a lion look like in reality? He recalled that Lin Yuan had told him to go to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to exchange the strange water for heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls after arriving in the Radiance Federation. Lin asked, "Lion, I will reach the Radiance Federation in less than a month. Did I see you when I went to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to exchange for resources?" The moment she asked this question, Yin Lin's tone was filled with anticipation. Upon hearing Yin Lin's words, Lin Yuan shook his head gently. Upon seeing Lin Yuan shake his head, Yin Lin's expression immediately dimmed. At that moment Lin Yuan said, "That's right. You probably won't see me when you go to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce to exchange for the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. However, you will definitely have a chance to meet me when you stay in Radiance." Upon hearing that, Yin Lin's face immediately revealed a smile. No matter what, he would be able to see Lin Yuan on this trip to the Radiant City. Yin Lin had already regarded it as her greatest gain. Yin Lin could not help but imagine Lin Yuan's appearance in reality. After chatting with Yin Lin for a while, Lin Yuan looked at Bei Su. "Yes, Bei Su. It should be very difficult to develop in the underground world, right? Are there any problems that need to be solved or areas that need help?" Upon hearing that, Bei Su hurriedly replied, "Lion. During this time I have pulled up a 10-man squad in the underground world. Everyone in this 10-man team has a contract with a source-type life form. Recently, I have been leading this squad to clear dimensional rifts below Class 2. On one hand, it can train their combat strength, and on the other hand they can obtain more resources." At that point, Bei Su suddenly thought of something. "Lion, the bat-shaped ring you gave me already contains a lot of minerals. I don't know how many times better these minerals are than the ones I dug before. Lion, how can I send these minerals to you?" Upon hearing Bei Su's words, Lin Yuan could not help but be a little speechless. Lin Yuan did not expect that Bei Su would think of giving him the resources that he had obtained with his life at this time. Chapter 1483. He had no way of obtaining these resources previously. Now that the Celestial Body Assembly had reached Class 3, Lin Yuan had an idea. He just wanted to use the Celestial Council's Celestial Soul Chair to exchange things with Bei Su. It consumed more law energy than what he had used to teleport Bei Su's items. Lin Yuan did not need the minerals produced from the Class 1 and Class 2 underground dimensional rifts at all. When looking at Bei Su's hopeful eyes, Lin Yuan said, "Don't worry. You can think of a way to forge the ores you've collected into simple equipment that you can wear. Even if your subordinates contract source-type items, it should be difficult for them to defeat an ordinary Class 1 underground creature, right?" To put it nicely, Lin Yuan felt that Bei Su was training his companions. To put it bluntly, Bei Su had to protect these people at all times. Bei Su's team didn't have any creation masters. There was no way to improve the strength of his subordinates' source-type items through the spirit materials they discovered. However, he could deliver supplies to Bei Su once or twice. If Lin Yuan were to take care of Bei Su's phase expenses, Bei Su's subordinates wouldn't be able to afford it. That would be a huge burden for him. Lin Yuan would not do that, but it was not like there was no way to change the current situation. There were two ways to change this situation. One was for Lin Yuan to teleport 100 Questions Beast to Bei Su. 100 Questions Beast with the ability of a Pinnacle Class 3 Creation Master would be able to improve the Bei Su team within a short period of time. However, the 100 Questions Beast was of great importance. It could affect the balance of the entire origin world. Even if he sent the 100 Questions Beast to Bei Su without worry, the 100 Questions Beast's ability would be exposed in the rock continent. It would immediately bring about a fatal disaster to Bei Su. Of course, there was another way. Lin Yuan had asked Genius to transmit the Creation Master's knowledge to Bei Su through the end of the connection. In the Celestial Body Council, everyone's body was made up of their soul and will. Lin Yuan couldn't see if Bei Su had Creation Master talent just by looking at the body formed by the soul and willpower. Once Bei Su grasped the knowledge of a Creation Master, he would see if he could concoct the spirit fluid. If he could, it would prove that Bei Su had the talent of a Creation Master. Bei Su would be completely self-sufficient in the future. However, if not, Lin Yuan would have a headache. Upon hearing that, Bei Su could not help but feel a little ashamed. None of his teammates could fight. While cleaning up the underground dimensional rift, Bei Su spent most of his energy on taking care of his subordinates' safety. However, these subordinates greatly affected the speed at which Bei Su collected resources. But Bei Su couldn't just leave these subordinates alone. On one hand, Bei Su's emotions didn't allow him to do this. On the other hand, Lin Yuan's goal was to establish a faction. Once he lost these subordinates, Bei Su's desire to build a force could only be empty talk. Because no matter how strong Bei Su became, he couldn't call himself a force. Just as Bei Su was at a loss for words, Lin Yuan stood up and nodded at Wen Yu. The Leo nebula above his head shone brightly, and a belt of light appeared under his seat. This light belt was connected to the immortal constellation seat in the north. Lin Yuan did not tell Bei Su what he was going to do. Instead, he spoke to Yin Lin, Bei Su and Trey in unison. After the Celestial Body Conference, you can communicate with the Celestial Body Conference through the nebula at any time. However, the transmission of this information will be accompanied by a great deal of consumption. If it's not something important, try not to send a message to the Celestial Body Conference. Lin Yuan's words delighted Bei Su, Yin Lin and Trey. Previously, the three of them could only enter the Celestial Body Conference through deep sleep. This caused the three of them to feel a sense of insecurity. They were afraid that the Celestial Body Conference would no longer be open. Waiting was the most unbearable. But now, they had the ability to communicate with the Celestial Body Conference. Even if they didn't use this ability, it could make people feel especially at ease. Through the Star Spirit Chair and Genius's exclusive skill, the interconnection tail, he transmitted the knowledge to Bei Su. It would only be transmitted to Bei Su's mind after the Celestial Body Conference was over. Lin Yuan didn't need to say much, and Bei Su would naturally know what to do. Such a large amount of knowledge was transmitted to Bei Su through Genius's exclusive skill, the interconnection tail, and it took Lin Yuan a lot of willpower. These willpower were all fragmented willpower absorbed from the incomplete fantasy breed phase corpses. It was these willpower that gave the princess dress many messy scenes and textures. After getting rid of these wills, the princess's skirt would become much more beautiful than before. After dealing with Bei Su's matter, Lin Yuan asked Trey, who was at the side. Do you know the Nanmu city on the border of the Divine Wood Federation that is closest to the Iron Hammer Federation? Trey nodded and said, Master, I've definitely heard of Nanmu city. However, if the border collapses and we reach the territory of the Divine Wood Federation, our Iron Hoof tribe might be killed before we can even reach Nanmu city. We can only go as far as the border, where the Depreme caravan sells their goods. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan replied, As long as you know the exact location of Nanmu city. When you reach the border of the Divine Wood Federation, don't bring everyone from the Iron Hoof tribe to Nanmu city. Have the stronger members of your tribe disguise themselves, and then go to Flourishing Prosperity Merchant Guild to find the guild leader, Li Wan. Tell Li Wan that you're looking for someone called Su Iran. She'll make arrangements for you. Trey carefully noted down Lin Yuan's words. After arranging Yin Lin, Bei Su and Talei's situation, Lin Yuan was in a daze. He was ready to let Wen Yu start selecting the new members of the Celestial Council. Lin Yuan said to Yin Lin and the others. Next, there will be 2 new members in the Celestial Council. In the future, if you have something important to do and are particularly busy, you don't have to attend the Celestial Council every 7 days. After deepening the connection between the Celestial Council and you, every time the Celestial Council opens, the astrology will communicate with you. As long as you respond to the astrology, you don't need to sleep to enter the Celestial Council. After saying that, Lin Yuan nodded at Wen Yu. Wen Yu immediately activated the Celestial Council. When Wen Yu activated the Celestial Council, the astrology hidden during the day automatically moved rhythmically. Immediately after, a figure with a willpower rune wrapped around its body appeared in the Celestial Council. The figure that suddenly appeared in the Celestial Council looked at the 2 figures sitting on the golden thrones under the resplendent nebula. He felt as if he was looking at a god. Chapter 1484. While this figure was confused, Lin Yuan and Wen Yu had already used the Celestial Council's ability. He began to investigate this figure's background and experiences. At a glance, Lin Yuan and Wen Yu frowned at the same time, and their faces suddenly darkened. After checking this figure's background, Lin Yuan, and when you decided to let this figure stay in the Celestial Council. He became the 5th contractor of the Southern Sky Constellation Throne. Ever since Lin Yuan had become a spirit chi professional, he had helped many people. Every one of these people had some misfortune in one way or another. Due to the Insect Queen's injury, Lu Jia had gone from a Radiance 100 sequence member to an ordinary person who could not even use phase. Because when you had helped her companions, her talent had been damaged and she had been ostracized by her companions. As for Qin Luan and Qin Yu, because of the awakening of their beast marks, their bodies were unable to touch sunlight. However, compared to Qin Luan, Qin Yu, Wen Yu and Lu Jia, this figure was much more unfortunate. Or rather, using the word unfortunate to describe this figure's experience was somewhat inaccurate. The experience of this figure could only be described as pitiful. According to this figure's memories and experiences, Lin Yuan knew that this figure was just a teenager who had accidentally awakened a willpower rune. Ever since he was born, his fate had been full of misfortune, and he had never been able to get what he wanted. All kinds of hardships, big and small, were piled on Bu Po's body. Bu Po and his sister, who depended on each other for survival, simply could not breathe. The fact that his sister was kidnapped and forced to get married was the last straw that broke the camel's back. But the root of all this couldn't be said to be the youth's misfortune. Instead, it was because this young man was in an extremely deformed federation, the Mother Goddess Federation. He already had a certain understanding of the Mother Goddess Federation. The Agro-Pattern Main Road was in the southwest of the Radiance continent, and it was the closest continent to the Radiance continent. Apart from the Terra Pattern continent, there was another continent that was very close to the Radiance continent. This continent was called the Fearful Sand continent. There were 2 great federations on the Frost Sand continent. One of them was the Mother Goddess Federation, where Bu Po was. On the Frost Sand continent, the Mother Goddess Federation and the Sand Continent Federation were neighbors. Each of the 2 major federations had a Class 5 Creation Master. However, as compared to the number of Class 4 Creation Masters, the Sand Province Federation had nearly 3 times more than the Mother Goddess Federation. But under such circumstances, the Mother Goddess Federation was still able to stand against the Sand Continent Federation, and was not at a disadvantage. It was because of the Mother Goddess Federation's special system of governance. The ruling system of the Mother Goddess Federation was only divided into 3 ranks: Mother Earth, Mother Heaven, and Mother Goddess. Mother Goddess was the only one in the Federation, and Heavenly Mother controlled Mother Earth. Mother Earth had absolute authority among ordinary people. As long as Mother Earth followed the rules, she could decide the life and death of ordinary people. Bu Po's sister was fancied by a son of Mother Earth, and if this son of Mother Earth directly did something to Bu Po's sister, it would be against the rules. But if Mother Earth's youngest son married Bu Po's elder sister, Bu Po would be the one to die. Whatever Bu Po's youngest son did would belong to Mother Earth's family affairs. Such rigid rules were simple and crude, and there was no logic to speak of at all. Even the only Divine Mother in the Divine Wood Federation had to be restricted by the Divine Mother Guards in certain matters. For example, the Mother Goddess could not marry for her entire life. At the same time, the Mother Goddess had to accept disciples in her prime. He would also pass down his Class 5 Creation Master path to his disciple. This way, the Mother Goddess Federation's Class 5 Creation Masters could be passed down from generation to generation, repeating the cycle. When mentioning the Mother Goddess Federation, Lin Yuan could clearly feel that his master, the Moon Empress, was unwilling to talk more. Lin Yuan could see that his master hated the Mother Goddess Federation from the bottom of her heart. At that time, Lin Yuan didn't know why his master had such a great hostility toward the Mother Goddess Federation. Moreover, there was some disdain in it. Now that Lin Yuan understood the true situation of the Mother Goddess Federation, he had the same feeling. Lin Yuan's previous impression of the Mother Goddess Federation was that the people loved tattoos. From birth to death, a person would often be covered in tattoos. However, based on Bu Po's experience, Lin Yuan had a more intuitive understanding of the Mother Goddess Federation. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Bu Po murmur, "Am I dreaming? Or am I already dead?" Bu Po was obviously worried when she said that she was already dead. According to his perception, Lin Yuan understood that Bu Po was afraid that her sister would miss him and be sad for him after knowing. Looking at Bu Po's confused look, Lin Yuan asked, "You're not dead. Welcome to the Celestial Body Council." Do you remember the wish you made before you fell asleep? Upon hearing that, Bupa stared at the two figures sitting on the golden thrones in disbelief. Of course, Bupa remembered what she was thinking before she fell asleep. Even after falling unconscious, Bupa was still thinking about how to save her sister. Bupa didn't even have the time to exclaim that there really were immortals in this world. Dear immortals, if you can save my sister, I will do anything for you. I beg you, please save my sister. Before his voice faded, Bupo's body, which was transformed from her soul and will, had already knelt on the ground devoutly. His eyes were filled with hope. In the Mother Goddess Federation, dignity was the most important thing. Because only some people take dignity as a breath to support their spine. Only then would they have the courage to continue living under the layers of pressure. But now Bupo's actions had thrown away her dignity and bottom line. This meant that Bupa valued her sister's feelings 10,000 times more than her own dignity. Bupo's request could be considered as a response to the Celestial Council's oath. However, if Lin Yuan wanted to help Bupa save her sister, he had to think carefully about how to do it. The best way was to make Bupa become an Earth Mother. However, Bupa didn't have either of the two conditions to become an Earth Mother. Bupa was now only a D-rank spirit chi professional who had awakened a willpower rune by chance, but she had never contracted a Fey. Therefore it was simply impossible for Bupa to become a king-class expert. Even if Lin Yuan could prepare a bronze/epic Fey for Bupa. At the same time, he also sent over the diamond spirit fluid of this bronze/epic Fey. Given Bupo's spirit chi professional rank, she couldn't contract it. Therefore, if he wanted to help Bupa get out of this predicament, he could only try the second way. This second way was like Lin Yuan betting on whether Bei-Su had the talent to become a creation master. He was betting on whether Bupa had the talent to become a creation master. However, if Bei-Su lost the gamble, it would be as simple as not being able to enhance his subordinate source-type life forms. If Bupa lost the gamble, she would lose her sister because of this. Lin Yuan had never experienced Bupo's situation before, but he could put himself in her shoes. Chapter 1485. He could not imagine what would happen if Zhou Xian encountered the same situation as Bupo's big sister. How would he feel when he was powerless to do anything? However, after thinking about it, the only way to solve the problem was to bet on Bupo's talent. After all, the current Celestial Council was still unable to teleport powerhouses over. He couldn't teleport Bupa over. However, if Bupa really had the talent of a creation master, she would become a Class 3 creation master in a short time with Lin Yuan's help. Bupa was only 15 years old now. A Class 3 creation master at such a young age in the Radiance Federation. All of them could be called geniuses that were rarely seen in the world. If Heavenly Mother of the Mother Goddess Federation discovered an outstanding Mother Earth, she would be rewarded by Mother Goddess. Thus, the Heavenly Mother of the Mother Goddess Federation would usually try her best to help the Mother Earth that she discovered. After Bupo's innate talent was discovered by the Heavenly Mother, in order to receive a reward, Bupo's innate talent was discovered by the Heavenly Mother. She would definitely report Bupo's situation to the Divine Mother. It was rumored that the Mother Goddess of the Mother Goddess Federation had already accepted 4 disciples. Presumably, the Mother Goddess of the Mother Goddess Federation wouldn't mind accepting another talented disciple like Bupo, right? At that thought, Lin Yuan said to Wenyu. Tianqing, it was Lyra constellation that brought Bupo into the Celestial Body Council. Let Bupa sign a contract with Lyra constellation. Wenyu said to Bupo upon hearing this. Lion allows you to join the Celestial Council. Place your hand on the back of the Lyra seat beside you. Use your soul to sign a contract with this Lyra throne. Bupa hurriedly stood up when she heard this. He clumsily placed his palm on the back of the Lyra seat. Bupa knew that the reason why he said that was because he had agreed to her request. His sister could finally be saved. Even though Zhou Xian did not know how the other party would help him, he was confident that the other party would be able to lure him here. This meant that the other party was definitely very powerful. In any case, none of the Mother Earths that Bupa had seen before had such an ability. The moment Bupa placed her palm on the back of the Lyra seat, among the thousands of nebulae above his head, the Lyra nebula shone brightly. Lyra constellation's radiance landed on Bupo's body, causing Bupo's entire body to become resplendent. At the same time, the astral soul chair of the Celestial Council connected to Bupa. Lin Yuan used Genius exclusive skill Interconnection Tail to transfer a massive amount of creation master knowledge to Bu Pa. After transmitting the knowledge, Lin Yuan said to Bu Pa, "Now I will send you away from the Celestial Council. You already have the ability to communicate with the Celestial Council." Bu Pa could finally rescue her sister. From now on, Bu Pa decided that she would protect her sister while repaying the two figures who had redeemed her in the stars. However, Bu Pa did not know that she was about to become famous in the Goddess Federation. She would become the youngest Class 3 creation master on the cold sand continent. She would even be accepted as a disciple by the goddess who only existed in legends. Because of the grand meeting in the stars, a change in the cold sand continent had quietly begun. After sending Bu Pa back, she continued to use the astrology. She searched for other people who were willing to exchange everything for a wish. However, this choice made Lin Yuan and Wen Yu rather awkward. Many of these people were not in a difficult situation, and what they wanted was not what they needed. Most of them wanted money that they could not spend in their lifetime in a high position. They even wanted women that they could not get. Even if Lin Yuan could help them fulfill these wishes, he could not do it. Otherwise, if he helped these people fulfill their wishes, Lin Yuan would become a heinous bully. Moreover, the Celestial Council did not need such people. At that moment, a figure with two wills appeared in the Celestial Council. After this figure appeared, he was only stunned for a moment before he checked the surrounding situation. This meant that this person had seen the world. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to cultivate such a calm demeanor. Chapter 1486. Lin, Bei Su and Talei looked at the figure that was looking around and muttered in their hearts. They had obviously forgotten that when they first entered the Celestial Council, they were not as calm as this figure in front of them. Lin Yuan and Wen Yu had already started to look into the memories and life experiences of this figure with two willpower runes entwined around it. After looking at it, Lin Yuan and Wen Yu looked at each other. This time Lin Yuan and Wen Yu did not immediately decide to let this figure join the Celestial Council. Instead they asked the figure, "Do you know why you are here?" Lin Yuan's question attracted Warren's attention. When Warren had first arrived in this starry world, he had thought that he was hallucinating due to excessive thirst. But soon, Warren realized that things were not as simple as he thought. This was because Warren could clearly feel the power of laws and willpower from the two figures sitting on the golden thrones. The power of laws and willpower was not something that could be dreamed of. If a person dreamed of laws and willpower, they would be able to dream of the power of laws and willpower. Then the awakening of willpower runes would not be a problem that troubled all spirit chi professionals. In addition, Warren could keenly feel the three people sitting on the golden thrones not far away from him. They were looking at him with inquisitive and curious eyes. This meant that he had mistakenly entered a strange world. After hearing Lin Yuan's question, Warren could not help but ponder. Warren really did not know why he was here. Warren also wanted to know the reason why he could come here. Warren thought about his words and said with some restraint, "My lord, I am just a small navigator. My lord, I'm just a lowly navigator. I don't know why I'm here. Please tell me." Lin Yuan was not surprised at all when he heard that. According to Warren's memories and life experiences, Lin Yuan understood what kind of person Warren was. It was difficult for a person who had fainted due to extreme thirst to remember the last thought when he was awake. Lin Yuan had to give him some pointers. "You were able to come here because you used your entire being to make a wish. And I can fulfill your wish." Lin Yuan's words made Warren's heart skip a beat. After Warren carefully recalled, he immediately knew what was going on. Then he was pleasantly surprised. In that case, he and his brothers could be saved. At that moment, Warren heard Lin Yuan continue to speak. "But before that, you need to let me know what you can do for me." Back then, when the Heavenly Body Council took in Bei Su, Lin, Tali, and Bu Pa, Lin Yuan had directly absorbed them into the Celestial Council and had not asked questions like, "What can you do for me?" However, he was relatively harsh when facing Warren and Su Iran. This was because the Zui and Warren were very purposeful people. All Su Iran could think about was surviving and reclaiming the Dark Continent. Warren, on the other hand, was thinking about how to have better adventures and become a better navigator. Warren had ideals, but Warren's current ideals conflicted with the goals of the Celestial Council. What the Celestial Council needed was a leader and decision-maker who could build a force in the new continent and expand the territory of the Sky City. He was never an adventurer who was full of the spirit of adventure. If Warren could choose between reality and ideals, he could become a seed that Sky City sowed on the new continent. Only then would Warren be worthy of being saved. There were many pitiful people in the world who were about to lose their lives. If Lin Yuan did not save Warren, he could save others. There was no difference. When Warren heard Lin Yuan's question, he immediately calmed down and carefully pondered over Lin Yuan's words. Soon, Warren sensed the hint of a different meaning in Lin Yuan's words. Lin Yuan was asking what he could do for them. He was not asking what he was worth. When he had introduced himself, he had said that he was a navigator. Obviously, in the eyes of the figure sitting on the golden throne, navigators had no value. As early as when he was on the brink of death, Warren had already questioned the ideal of adventure. If he did not know the danger, he would have gone to the southwest to explore the island. He would not have been surrounded by the sawfin bite sharks. Before he fainted, Warren even had the idea of opening a tavern at the port. However, compared to a navigator, the owner of a tavern was obviously less valuable. After thinking about it, Warren thought of a way to show his value. "My lord, I have been adventuring in the sea since I was young. Although I did not have much experience in adventuring as a veteran navigator, I have accumulated a lot of connections. If my lord needs and your location is close to the Storm Federation, I can gather a sailing team to help you. In addition, I will use spiritual materials to build large ships. These large ships may not be comparable to the island whale, but they can be worry-free in the sea. However, as long as you are willing to invest in the construction of large ships, you can use spiritual materials that are above gold, and you can resist the attack of diamond sea beasts." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan immediately became interested and asked, "You are saying that special ships built with gold spiritual materials can resist the attack of diamond sea beasts? What about ships built with diamond spiritual materials? Can they resist the attack of myth-breed sea beasts?" Warren was secretly shocked when he heard this. How many diamond spiritual materials would be used to build a large ship with all diamond spiritual materials? The amount of spiritual materials consumed was beyond Warren's imagination. The figure who asked the question obviously did not care about diamond spiritual materials. Warren deliberated and said, "My lord, myth-breed sea beasts are usually able to borrow the power of the sea through the rules. There is an old saying among us navigators that if we encounter myth-breed sea beasts, we will definitely die. Even if we use diamond spiritual materials to build a large ship, it may still not be able to resist the crazy attack of myth-breed sea beasts. However, if we encounter fantasy-breed sea beasts, even if they are new suzerain fantasy-breed sea beasts, I believe that a large ship built with diamond spiritual materials can withstand it." After hearing Warren's words, Lin Yuan decided to recruit Warren into the Celestial Council. Sea beasts were rampant in the origin world, and it was much easier to use large ships to replace island whales for trade than nurturing floating island whales. However, if there were any problems along the way, they would immediately lose everything. The Storm Federation's shipbuilding technology was famous in the origin world. In the Storm Federation, those who could call themselves navigators were all driving their own ships to sail on the sea. However, in the Storm Federation, these navigators had another name. They were called pirates. Chapter 1487. The source of income for navigators was often to drive their own ships to those desolate and uninhabited islands to plunder resources. There were even some navigators who engaged in piracy at sea. According to Warren's memories, Lin Yuan knew that Warren belonged to the former. This must be the reason why Warren said that he had a certain reputation among the navigators. Warren had saved many navigators who were being robbed from pirates while they were sailing on the sea. In the origin world, it was extremely risky to rely on the Storm Federation's shipbuilding technology to run on the trade route. However, if this shipbuilding technology was used in the swamp world, it would be completely different. Lin Yuan's current territory in the swamp world was already extremely vast. He had very few manpower in the swamp world. The collection of resources in this territory could only rely on powerhouses like the slaughtering sky butterfly. However, if there were large ships in the swamp world, then once these ships set out, they would not be able to reach the swamp world. That way they could search for large amounts of soil hidden in the swamp. With Bai Xian leading the fleet, none of the marsh crocodiles dared to attack. In addition, Lin Yuan learned from Sea Empress Yin Dai that most of the sea regions were guarded by sea empresses or sea kings. If he could inform the sea emperor or sea king of a certain sea region in advance. In that case, even without the island whale, they would not encounter any danger by just relying on a small boat to sail on the sea. Among Lin Yuan's current subordinates, there was Sea Empress Yin Dai. The distance between the Radiance Federation and the Storm Federation was about the same as the distance between the Radiance Federation and the Azure Federation. Back then, the Azure Federation and the Radiance Federation had been able to establish the Radiance Blue navigation path because they had built a good relationship with the sea creatures on the entire navigation path. If Yin Dai of the 8 great clans of the Sea Kingdom went to make arrangements, or use some special methods, they would not be able to deal with it. Could a Radiance Wind Sea route be established between the Radiance Federation and the Storm Federation? Of course, these were not things that Lin Yuan could consider at the moment. Currently, Warren's best course of action was to establish a force of navigators in the Storm Federation. Lin Yuan should be thinking about how to help Warren get through the current crisis. Your ability has proven your worth. Now you can place your hand on the back of the Ophiuchus throne and sign a contract with it. Warren hurriedly signed a contract with the Ophiuchus throne. He asked, "Sir, what do I need to do after this?" Lin Yuan nodded. He said, "Use your connections among the Voyagers to form an organization with the Voyagers as its main function. I'll tell you what happens next after you've finished building your force." At this point, Lin Yuan changed the topic and asked, "You were trapped by a few hundred soften-biting sharks. What is your spirit chi professional rank now?" Warren hurriedly replied, "My lord, I am an A-rank spirit chi professional." Lin Yuan asked curiously after hearing Warren's answer. "You're an A-rank spirit chi professional. Why is your main fei, the binding sea fern, only at gold 9/fantasy I?" Lin Yuan's question made Warren a little ashamed. In fact, Warren's armored sea fern had been a gold 9/epic fei previously. Warren might be an A-rank spirit chi professional, but he had been adventuring for a long time and had invested all his expenses on the ship. Therefore, Warren had not been able to find a creation master to enhance his main fei. The reason why Warren upgraded the binding sea fern was because he wanted to take a gamble in the face of danger. Warren used the 4 platinum tree cores he had collected on the island to feed the armored sea fern. The armored sea fern's quality had been upgraded from epic to legend. Warren then used one of his willpower runes suitable for the armored sea fern to fuse with the gold 9/legend armored sea fern. It turned the armored sea fern into a gold 9/fantasy I fantasy breed fei. However, Warren did not expect the armored sea fern's strength upgrade to not be able to save the ship's predicament. Apart from the gold soften-biting sharks, there were also platinum soften-biting sharks. In the sea, the gold/fantasy breed armored sea fern could easily crush a gold soften-biting shark. Could also fight with 2 of them and not be at a disadvantage. However, among the hundreds of soften-biting sharks underwater, there were at least 20 platinum soften-biting sharks. As long as the gold/fantasy breed armored sea fern dared to enter the water, it would soon be torn into pieces by the platinum soften-biting sharks. In addition, Warren also found a few shadows that were about 10 meters long. The soften-biting sharks would be able to reach platinum when they were 7 or 8 meters long, and they would most likely reach diamond when they were 10 meters long. Warren deeply regretted that he had not poured his main financial resources into increasing his strength. Even though he was ashamed since Lin Yuan had asked this question. Warren explained his situation to Lin Yuan in detail. After hearing Warren's answer, Lin Yuan felt that Warren was indeed a crazy adventurer. Warren's spirit chi professional rank also allowed Lin Yuan to find a way to help him. Through communicating with Warren, Lin Yuan found out that Warren's contract direction was for control-type aquatic phase. Through communicating with Genius, Lin Yuan found out that the 100 Questions Beast Legion's inventory didn't have the spirit fluid that could increase the armored sea fern's strength to diamond. Chapter 1488. After consuming the fragmented water element laws, Princess Luo Kun dived into the deep blue ocean. They could already clearly see the scene of a giant whale with large wings wantonly cheering under the sea. After dealing with Warren's problem, more than 30 minutes had passed. The Celestial Body Council had come to an end. Warren chatted with Yin Lin, Bei Su and Tally for a while. After Yin Lin, Bei Su and Tally got to know Warren, the Celestial Body Council officially came to an end. Warren, who had fallen asleep on the ship's watchtower, opened his eyes the moment he left the Celestial Body Council. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw a fiery red sun rising from the surface of the sea. The sun rose from the sea and the sky was bright. The last trace of darkness was also completely dispelled by the light of the sun wheel. Warren had been a navigator for decades, and he could see the sun rising from the sea almost every day. However, for the first time, Warren realized that the sunrise from the sea could be so beautiful. Then Warren came back to his senses and remembered that he had just joined an organization called the Celestial Body Council. Although Warren knew that it was not a dream, he was still afraid that it was just his imagination due to thirst. At this moment, Warren realized that there was a strangely shaped ring beside his hand. The ring was embedded with a blue crystal. The blue crystal was polished into the shape of an octopus, and it looked very cute. Warren was sure that he had never seen this ring before. Based on the workmanship of the ring, Warren was sure that it was definitely not left behind by another sailor. Warren thought of the figure surrounded by laws and willpower and what he had said to him. "I have prepared something for you. After you get it, you will know what to do." Warren thought to himself. Could it be that this ring is a piece of spatial equipment? Warren tried to touch the ring with his mind power, and soon discovered that there was a huge space inside the ring. The space was so big that it could directly store the Warren under his feet. As he continued to explore the space inside the ring, Warren found 4 bottles of spirit liquid and a basin in the corner of the space. There was a palm-sized octopus in the basin, stretching its tentacles. Moreover, the octopus was changing its body color from time to time. The bright blue spots on the octopus's body were enough to prove that this little octopus was extremely poisonous. Warren hurriedly summoned the basin and the 4 bottles of spiritual liquid from the space ring. He looked at the 4 bottles of spirit liquid and the octopus fey in the basin. Warren immediately understood what Lin Yuan meant. Immediately after, Warren checked the octopus fey and the 4 bottles of spirit fluid in the basin. Warren wasn't a creation master, so he couldn't find anything. However, as a navigator, Warren still had the foresight that he should have. Warren hadn't found anything when he had probed this octopus fey in the spatial ring just now. Now that he was closer to take a closer look, Warren immediately saw that this octopus fey was actually a bronze/legend existence. This discovery made Warren's body tremble violently. Warren did not know how to nurture a bronze/legend fey. However, Warren knew very well what a bronze/legend fey meant. At that moment, Warren didn't dare to imagine how noble the figure sitting on the golden seat in the Heavenly Body Council was. He could actually casually take out a bronze/legend fey and give it to him. It was just to help him escape this calamity. Moreover, this octopus fey relied on poison to attack, which was very compatible with the water poison willpower rune that he had comprehended. In other words, after he contracted this octopus fey, he could immediately fuse the willpower rune with it. Wasn't this the same as saying that he had contracted a bronze/fantasy breed fey? He had made a huge profit. As for the other 4 bottles of spirit fluid, even if Warren had foresight, he really couldn't see what they were. However, the crystal bottles that contained the 4 bottles of spirit fluid were marked with 4 numbers from 1 to 4. These 4 numbers let Warren know the order in which these 4 bottles of spirit fluid should be used. After understanding the order in which the spirit fluid should be used, Warren reached out his hand. He carefully signed a contract with the little octopus in the basin. This octopus might look very cute, but Warren was used to seeing marine fays. He could tell at a glance that this little octopus had extraordinary poison. Before the contract was completed, this octopus poison would also have an effect on Warren. The poisons of poison-type fays were never reasonable. There were plenty of contractors in the Storm Federation who contracted poison-type fays but were accidentally injured by poison-type fays and lost their lives before the contract. Once Warren contracted the blue-ringed sea octopus, he wouldn't be afraid of its poison anymore. After the contract, Warren could feel that the blue-ringed sea octopus in the basin was very attached to him. Warren was stunned for a moment. Warren, who had only contracted a marine plant fey, had never experienced the joy of spiritual communication with a fey. Warren used his palm to lift the blue-ringed sea octopus out of the basin. The blue-ringed sea octopus obediently used its tentacles to grab Warren's fingers and interact with him affectionately. After looking at the time, Warren realized that it was soon time for the sailors to wake up. Warren quickly summoned the water poison willpower rune in his spiritual spatial zone and welcomed the cute blue-ringed sea octopus in his hand. Chapter 1489. If it wasn't for the blue-ringed sea octopus still communicating with Warren intimately and putting its tentacles on Warren's body and tickling his waist, Warren might not be able to endure it and run to the cabin to hide. Warren might be a little apprehensive when he saw the massive blue-ringed sea octopus, but he was also very happy. The saw-toothed bite shark had a quick hunting instinct. Previously, Warren was afraid that even if the blue-ringed sea octopus reached Diamond and used poison-type attacks, it would still be hard to kill the Diamond saw-toothed bite shark within 3 seconds. This made the petite blue-ringed sea octopus very likely to be swallowed by the saw-toothed bite shark. Even if the blue-ringed sea octopus was lucky enough to not be bitten by the saw-toothed bite shark and only be swallowed into its stomach, it was still very likely to kill the blue-ringed sea octopus. Even if it did not kill the blue-ringed sea octopus, it was destined to be controlled. The belly of the diamond saw-toothed bite shark was not a comfortable place to rest. The saw-toothed bite shark had a large number of sea turtle phase in its diet. It could even digest a sea turtle's shell, which was enough to show how corrosive the saw-toothed bite shark's stomach was. Even if the strong acid did not corrode the blue-ringed sea octopus's body, the blue-ringed sea octopus could not rely on its poison to break out of the saw-toothed bite shark's body. However, Warren was no longer worried. Even if the massive blue-ringed sea octopus was bitten by the diamond saw-toothed bite shark, it would only injure its tentacles. Only the tentacles would be injured and their lives would not be affected. But soon Warren realized that he was wrong again. After the third bottle of spirit fluid, the massive blue-ringed sea octopus expanded again. It grew from a 15-meter tall mass to a 35-meter tall mass. Its 8 tentacles could reach 80 meters in length. What surprised Warren even more was that the 8 tentacles were like the roots of a plant. Each of them had a dozen or so tiny tentacles growing out of them. Of course, this tiny referred to the blue-ringed sea octopus's 8 main tentacles. Even the shortest tentacles could reach 20 meters in length. It was not impossible for the longer ones to reach 30 meters. At this moment, the halo on the platinum blue ocean octopus was so bright that it hurt Warren's eyes. Warren swallowed his saliva as he fed the last bottle of spirit liquid in his hand. The blue-ringed sea octopus drank the last bottle of elixir. Immediately after, Warren felt his feet sink in, and the deck made a sour sizzling sound. The body of the blue-ringed ocean octopus had completely blocked Warren's line of sight. The deck of the ship that was 150 meters long simply couldn't accommodate the blue-ringed giant octopus that had undergone another mutation. The blue-ringed giant octopus lay on the hull, half of its body already submerged in the sea. According to Warren's estimation, the giant octopus was at least 80 meters tall. Every main tentacle was nearly 300 meters long when stretched out. The main tentacles were clustered tentacles that looked like roots, and the shortest ones could reach up to 50 meters. It was long enough to reach 100 meters. Its body length was already comparable to a small cetacean fay. The diamond/fantasy blue-ringed giant octopus didn't just become larger. Warren saw that the main tentacles and the auxiliary tentacles of the giant octopus had dark blue thorns that were about half a meter long. These spikes were like the fangs of a wild boar. Warren found it hard to imagine that the blue-ringed giant octopus would swing these half-meter-long spikes at the enemy. What kind of enemy could withstand such a blow? If the tentacles went down, these spikes could blast a big hole in the enemy's body. Moreover, the color of these blue spikes was the same as the blue halo on the blue-ringed giant octopus's body. Clearly, these blue spikes were poisonous. The blue-ringed giant octopus, which had just advanced to Diamond X/Fantasy I, was either extremely hungry or had a very brutal nature. As soon as it entered the sea, it attacked the softened bite sharks in the sea. In addition, the softened bite sharks had the instinct to hunt quickly. The softened bite sharks that had followed the ship for a long time had a subconscious understanding. When the ship was besieged to a certain extent, there would always be food falling from the sky. This was a memory engraved in the genes of the softened bite sharks and the Storm Federation's ship for many years. But now, such a memory had harmed this group of softened bite sharks. Because it was not a thirsty sailor who went into the water, but a blue-ringed giant octopus whose bloodline was evolving in an indescribable direction. The blue halo on the blue-ringed giant octopus's body suddenly lit up, turning the seawater around it into a gorgeous peacock blue. The softened bite sharks that swarmed over were instantly paralyzed the moment they came into contact with the poison-soaked seawater. Then the blue-ringed giant octopus waved its tentacles and pierced these poisoned and paralyzed softened bite sharks one by one like skewers. After hunting the softened bite sharks like this for a while, the blue-ringed giant octopus felt bored. The blue-ringed giant octopus simply withdrew its poison and spread its tentacles, like a ball of net, facing the softened bite sharks. The blue-ringed giant octopus waved its main tentacles and subordinate tentacles, wantonly harvesting the lives of every softened bite shark. Warren felt the blue-ringed giant octopus's joy while looking at the sea red with the blood of the softened bite sharks in horror. This massacre had almost annihilated hundreds of softened bite sharks. Chapter 1490. The little monkey's eyes reddened when it heard Warren's words. If its blood could help Warren and the crew survive, the little monkey was willing to give up its life. However, the little monkey could not do that. The most he could do was to mix his blood with the shark jerky so that his shipmates wouldn't have a sore throat when they ate the shark jerky. However, the little monkey obviously could not say these words to Warren. Once it said these words to Warren, the other shipmates would know. The other shipmates would not be able to eat the shark jerky that it had prepared. Just when the little monkey felt that its secret had been discovered and did not know what to do, the little monkey felt its head sink. Warren's wide and rough palm gently rubbed the little monkey's curly hair. Warren did not say anything to the little monkey. He just looked at it deeply. Then Warren changed the topic and shouted at the sea. "Blue Ring, use your tentacles to help clean up the turtle shell in the engine room at the bottom of the ship. Then brothers will get some water to boil." Warren's words brought the sailors, including the little monkey, back to their senses. Then there was a burst of loud cheers on the deck. The Warren, which had survived the disaster, carried the sailors and Warren's joy, turned around and sailed to the port of the Storm Federation's Cold Dragon City's Doro district. When Yu's sacred source life form, the Celestial Parliament, had been upgraded to 3-star. In addition, Wen Yu's mental power had improved a lot compared to before. The Celestial Parliament had lasted for more than 40 minutes. Wen Yu still did not feel dizzy and her spiritual energy was exhausted like before. After leaving the Celestial Parliament, Lin Yuan looked at Wen Yu beside him. He recalled what he had learned about the Blissful Sea Tribe in Zhou Xian's store. Although Lin Yuan had mentioned to Wen Yu about establishing an information channel, he had not had the time to carry it out. Now Lin Yuan decided to establish an intelligence department as Sky City's top priority. "Wen Yu, do you have any plans for the intelligence department?" Wen Yu replied with a serious expression. "Young master, our Sky City has never had our own intelligence department before. If we want to establish an intelligence department, we must start from scratch and build it bit by bit. We cannot rely on the intelligence relationship of any force. We need to ensure that everyone in the intelligence department is absolutely loyal. This is the only way to ensure the accuracy of the information we have. As for concealment, when the time comes, the information will be transmitted using the Paper Crane Pact, so there's no need to worry at all. When I'm selecting people, I'll personally use the source paper's exclusive skill, Reality Paper, to check their loyalty." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan knew that Wen Yu had a clear plan for establishing the Sky City's intelligence department. Suddenly, Lin Yuan thought of Qin Luan, who was training with Listen. Qin Luan awakened the Extreme Nightjade Sky Scorpion beast mark and contracted another Extreme Nightjade Sky Scorpion. He was a natural-born assassin who excelled in covert operations and was very suitable to work in the intelligence department. On this trip to Indigo Azure City, Qin Luan had followed Listen and seen the city. For now, it would be better to send Qin Luan to Wen Yu's side. On one hand, it would allow Wen Yu to train Qin Luan. On the other hand, Wen Yu would have an additional helper when she established the intelligence department. The number of white-clothed followers in Sky City was increasing. After those king-class experts became white-clothed followers, none of them revealed their identities to the outside world. It could be said that the concept of white-clothed followers had yet to spread in the main world. Due to the different contracted phase, these white-clothed followers each had their own areas of expertise. When you could choose king-class experts suitable for working in the intelligence department from among these white-clothed followers to build the framework of the intelligence department. When the time comes, communicate with Big Brother Lu to transfer some of the white-clothed followers. This will save you a lot of effort when it comes to recruiting manpower. Upon hearing that, Wenyu revealed a faint smile on her face. She said softly, "Young master, with the source paper's faceless paper and the exclusive skill reality paper, it's actually not difficult to establish an intelligence department, but it's a little cumbersome. Don't worry, young master. In less than half a year, I'll be able to complete the Sky City's intelligence department. We'll be able to immediately grasp any news from the major factions. With the faceless paper, I can make all the intelligence workers have a specific face. Even if spies from other factions really sneak in, it'll be completely useless." After chatting with Lin Yuan for a while about the establishment of the Sky City's intelligence department, Wenyu returned to her room. She was ready to log into Star Web and go to manage Sky City's Star Web private faction territory as usual. Then Wenyu had to control the source paper on a large scale to produce the faceless paper. In addition, Wenyu had to increase her strength and design spirit chi clothing. These things added up had already taken up Wenyu's time. Lin Yuan also had to return to the Spirit Lock spatial zone to continue working. The orders from Cloud Pool City and Yuzhong City made Lin Yuan have to work for 2 more hours every day. Apart from working hard, Lin Yuan only had to wait for 3 days to use the faceless paper to disguise himself. He just had to follow the Creation Master team to the Whale Ocean Trading's old mansion. For Lin Yuan, Wenyu, Lu Jia and the others, everything was as usual. However, for most of the Spirit Chi professionals and ordinary people on Star Web and in the real world, the entire world had changed. The establishment of the Warm Sun Fund in the Xia region had indeed set off a huge wave on Star Web. However, this wave had not surged much before it was overshadowed by the news of the opening of the Abyss World. The Radiance Federation was connected to the Abyss World, and all 32 major cities had built mirror cities in the Abyss World. The factions of each major city needed to establish faction territories in the Abyss World's mirror cities. This caused the entire Radiance Federation's Creation Master resources to be scarce, causing the prices of metals, spiritual materials, ice-type phase and other resources to skyrocket. The prices of fire-type spiritual materials and exceptional flames had dropped significantly. The changes and turbulence in the market affected the revenue of countless factions. However, such changes could not be avoided because this was the mainstream choice of the era. At that moment, listen, Endless Summer, and the others returned to the royal capital from Indigo Azure City. After returning to the royal capital, Endless Summer immediately returned to the Return from Faraway Manor. Listen originally wanted to return to the Return from Faraway Manor immediately, but the royal capital was the first to divide the territory in the Abyss World. As a faction in the royal capital, the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had to choose whether to establish a faction in the Abyss World or the royal capital's mirror cities. If they wanted to build, the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had to pay a certain deposit and bear the cost of building the faction territory buildings. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.